What time is it? In an effort to respond to me, you would likely check your wristwatch, or in today's modern era, your smartphone, and you would immediately recognize the 4 digits that are relevant. 0542, 1123, 1701. Digits that communicate how much of today has already passed. But do we really think of time that way? We don't usually stop and think, oh no, it's 5 p.m., 1,020 minutes of my day are gone, what do I do? No, in fact, these numbers are numbers that we take for granted. They barely carry any weight. We fill up our monthly and weekly planners, scheduling repeating tasks at specific times on certain days, whether it be morning routines, classes, breaks, or meetings. It's important to ask ourselves, is all of that meaningful, or are we just filling up our calendars with noise that makes us feel like and look productive? Today, the truth is that we are busy, but we lose consciousness of the importance of time. Today, I'm here to reinforce the familiar adage that we must make the most of our time. But to do that to the max, we must flip that statement and make our time be our most. Time is an undeniable presence in our lives. We live through it, and it's a seemingly infinite constant. And this time has fascinated humanity for millennia. In fact, our fascination with time not only reflects how much we value it, but in extension, it reflects how much we want to avoid wasting it. And to prove this, here are some quotes that I've researched and found from some of our history's biggest thinkers, and they've been deemed inspiring quotes. Let's take a look at what they talk about. First, Roman philosopher Seneca said, "Life, if well lived, is long enough." Then, William Shakespeare said, "I wasted time, and how doth time waste me?" Benjamin Franklin, "Lost time is never found again." And finally, the big genius Albert Einstein, "Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, and it seems like an hour. Sit with a pretty girl for an hour, and it seems like a minute." Genius. Basically, these quotes from these ancient men are just fancy talk for, just don't waste your time, please. Thanks. Trust me, I've used a bunch of mine. The truth is that because it's so fixed, and unlike many things, we can't do anything to manipulate it, time is also pretty scary. It's simply so familiarly unfamiliar. And to break down this wall of time, I've developed this analogy. Time is like a never-ending road. Our lives are our journey on that road. If we were at any point to stop the car and look ahead into the horizon, that road would look completely infinite. Now, when you hear me talk about this road, I know you're probably picturing something like this. But no, if life was a perfectly flat road, it'd be so easy to enjoy every second to the max, slowing down the passage of time. So peaceful, so predictable, so serene, so boring. Perhaps it is now that we are wasting our time. And so we make sure that our roads aren't flat. We add bumps every month, week, day, hour, and minute. These bumps we add ourselves because we recognize that similar to a roller coaster, a flat and predictable road is no longer fun. What are these bumps called? The things we need to do, the things we want to do. But just as too little means too boring, too many bumps sometimes mean that we get dizzy and nauseous. So much has happened that we don't remember, and at the snap of our fingers, a year has already gone by. So how do we truly maximize our time? Striking the perfect balance between too many things to do that make our time run out faster and too little things to do which makes our time feel wasteful. And to do that, we must examine every bump. Some are bigger, longer, and taller than others, but they each have a set of tinier and tiny bumps that are present between and through all of the activities that a bump represents, whether it be classes, projects, and even recreational activities such as gaming. What are these tiny bumps? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your habits, where we start small and end big. Organizing the chaos from poorly managed time demands a gradual approach. We must start by eliminating harmful habits and replacing them with more fruitful ones. We'll go a step further by automating these habits, building mental efficiency, and boosting our productivity. All throughout this process, we must be aware of the false promises of perceived order that can arise along the way. A habit is a routine or behavior performed regularly and often automatically. Humans are creatures of predictability. I know, right? Humans and predictable don't really seem like they go in the same sentence, but just join me in answering the next slides. Here we go. 1 + 1 equals, this woman is mad, angry. Okay, just for the next one, don't read the words on the next screen. Whatever you do, do not read the words on the next screen. Okay, you probably read the words on the next screen. You probably read them wrong. One more. Whoa. Something was different about that last one. You were no longer using the same part of your brain that you were using for the other two. In fact, you were now thinking consciously instead of automatically. You were no longer using the side of your brain that's responsible for your science homework, for your English homework, for counting the number of steps that I take during the speech, which, by the way, you shouldn't do. And this, as you can probably imagine, requires a lot of mental effort. Imagine doing this all the time. And this is why we form habits and automate processes. The fact is that our time is significantly occupied by redundancies. I mean, just think about what you did 17 days ago. Don't check your calendars, don't check your schedules. 17 days. If I were to ask you for you to give me a simple list of 5 things you did that day, you would likely not talk about anything, not share anything you did at school or work, because those things really change daily. Those are assignments that are not consistent. Rather, your list would look something like this. Redundancies are the things that repeat frequently, and they're worth examining when determining what eats up our time and what's worth automating. The Austrian-American management consultant Peter Drucker once said, "There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently something that should not have been done at all." When we wake up at the same time, brush our teeth at the same time, eat the same breakfast, take the same route to work, and work out at the same time in the afternoon, if performed every day, that all becomes automatic. And which means that we don't need a conscious behavior, and we don't even need to be fully conscious while doing the habit, or we simply just don't need a conscious decision to initiate it. And that matters because we've just created something. We already know that we can't create time, but we're creating mental space. And that's the beauty of habits. We can repeat certain behaviors so frequently that they move from the conscious side of our brain to the automatic. And when we do that, we end up being able to perform an automatic and a conscious task at the same time. So in practice, we can do 2 things. First, we can maximize that new mental space, that new green space to pursue ourselves academically and professionally, whether it's through writing application essays or working to get the promotion at work. We can grow ourselves through personal projects and continue to network and build our relationships with those around us. But the second thing that this allows us to do is to look at that pink space and recognize that we have a healthy lifestyle running in the background. Now, while automation is an area worth exploring, it's important not to confuse this with multitasking. Remember, we're trying to establish an order in our turbulent lives. Multitasking is a perceived order. It makes us feel like we're doing more with the little time that we have, but really, it just adds to that chaos. It is impossible to perform 2 or more conscious tasks at once. Our brains are simply too limited. Think of them as an old computer, because the truth is that we have been around here for a long time. Now, trying to multitask is like trying to play a high graphics movie and a high graphics video game on that computer at the exact same time. Sooner or later, things will start to overheat, everything will begin glitching, and you'll end up, for sure, with a dead battery much faster. True efficiency lies with allocating our full attention to one task at a time, allowing us to create meaningful results. Now, let's not assume that each of us has already built one of those nice and healthy lifestyles running in the background with our redundancies. No, in fact, I haven't brought up something that is really important to habits, that is integral to our routines, and it's part of who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, bad habits. To me, bad habits are almost synonymous with hopelessness. When we think of bad habits, we can think of addictions, big or small, like doom scrolling, eating unhealthily, or even in extreme cases, smoking. Now, unfortunately, we often feel locked in this never-ending loop of proving to ourselves that even if we try to get better, we really can't because we end up failing again. So we eventually stop trying to get better, and we learn to accept our fate. We doom scroll for hours, procrastinate on assignments, and that's that. No more hope. We are trapped. So today, on our journey to making the most of our time, making our time be our most, we must start there and look to first reverse engineer our bad habits and replace them with habits that align with our idea of our most. And to do that, we must look to the experts. In his world-renowned book, Atomic Habits, James Clear explains that every action or habit you perform results from 4 steps: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. The cue triggers the craving, which motivates and incentivizes a response. We then perform the habit, enjoy the rewards of the solution, and repeat the process. This is known as the habit loop, and it's crucial in examining when determining why we feel so stuck in our bad habits. And luckily, these are 4 adjustable levers. Without satisfying all 4 levers of the habit loop, a habit will not form. For instance, if the cue becomes invisible, if the craving becomes unattractive, if the habit itself becomes difficult, or if the reward is simply unsatisfying, a habit will not be sustainable. And so start off simple, because simple is what we do best. If spending hours on YouTube after a long school day seems tempting for you, but you also know it's a bad habit, make it invisible by removing it as an app on your home screen, or removing it as a bookmark on your desktop. Make it difficult by going a step further and adding an app blocker, or even deleting the app altogether. Go a step further by replacing it with a good habit, an obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying habit. Like, I don't know, maybe taking a 5-minute walk outside just to de-stress for the afternoon. If you repeat this enough, it too will become automatic. And your walks will end up becoming a space where you can rest and create mental space while also keeping yourself physically active. Therefore, it becomes satisfying. Now finally, to ensure our mental space we've cleared up actually allows us to make the most of our time, we must be aware of Parkinson's law, which explains that work expands to fill the time we've set for it to be completed. The more time you have, the more time you use. If you were to give me 3 months to write a TED Talk, I would have likely taken those 3 months. Hint, hint, I did. Now, if you were to give me those last 2 weeks of those 3 months and say, hey, you haven't really written much, it's time to get this script done, I would have likely gotten it done in that time frame. Hint, hint, I did. We can take advantage of this principle and discreetly allocate time for tasks that have an undetermined deadline by setting our own deadlines. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do we make sure that we actually follow our deadlines? If we can't follow deadlines from our teachers, how are we going to follow deadlines that we make ourselves? And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the power of automation truly comes out. One thing is doing this consciously, but by automating it, we can really bring back power to this whole process. For instance, if we've established a habit of sleeping at 10 p.m. every night, we know that 10 p.m. is our true deadline for the science homework or a summative that's due at 11:59 p.m. that night. We can also do this to regulate breaks and recreational activities. Another example is try setting a timer to limit how much time we spend on social media as a break. Set a timer, and once it goes off, our brains are automatically programmed to switch to a more productive task. This creates a built-in boundary, helping you maintain control over how you spend your time, because eventually, if you end up going over time, your brain will feel like it's broken the rules, and our brains don't like to feel that way. By automating deadlines for both work and leisure, you reduce the mental effort required to stay on track, making it easier to foster healthier and more productive routines. Ultimately, habits and routines are the bit of consistency in the chaos that results from misused time. And through automation, they give us the freedom to achieve greater things. In our journey to making the most of our time, starting with the redundancies is essential. We must recognize the power of automation in building mental efficiency and realizing that although we can't create time, we can create meaningful time. Then, to make our time be our most, we must look at bad habits, recognize their power in robbing us of our most precious resource, but also their power in stopping us from becoming the best versions of ourselves. Using strategies like the habit loop and Parkinson's law, we'll become individuals that learn, grow, and thrive day in and day out. Now, as I close, it's important to remember that we're only going to feel like we have less and less time as we grow up. Sooner or later, there'll be no more nights to stay up for, or no more plans to say no to. We'll be fully booked, and our stress levels will have gone and shot through the roof. Such are the problems of chasing more time. So let's not chase time. Let's use it. There's what's gone, but there's also what you have. Life seems short and time is ticking, but with you in the driver's seat, be sure it's going to be one fulfilling ride. Thank you very much.